This is a Ramping Up Your English book review. If you want to go back in time to the very birth of trains and railroads, you want to read the book The History of Railways by Colin Heinsohn from Scholastic Books. The book's format reminds me of eyewitness books with small illustrations and ample text. English learners will find that the text is very challenging and there's a lot of text on each page. The illustrations are clear, providing the context to help readers decipher the text. Historical photos depict important events like the Golden Spike ceremony that joined the Union Pacific and the Central Pacific Railroads as America's first intercontinental railroad. There's a great amount of information in the history of railways. Readers will stretch their English reading skills, but you'll also be rewarded by a deeper knowledge of trains and railroads. Meanwhile, you'll be ramping up your English proficiency, especially in reading. For Ramping Up Your English, I'm John Letz. Welcome back to Ramping Up Your English, a support program for English learners who want to increase their level of English proficiency. If that's you, you're in the right place. This is episode 16, segment 3. In the previous episode, we worked with the words should and must to distinguish between giving advice and giving a warning. We also learned that using the words ought to means the same as should, and using the words have to means the same as must. Your homework is to use these alternative words to complete the same sentences we did in the last segment. You'll find what you need on my website, letscreate.org. Just go to the episode 16 page and scroll down. Do you recognize what this is? It's a small segment of a rail that the surface on which the train wheels travel. This lower part is attached to the cross pieces called railroad ties with spikes like this. The ties are usually made of wood in the shape of a rectangular prism laid perpendicular to the rails. Those who built the railroads used hammers with long handles to drive in these spikes. The upper part is what holds the wheels on the track. It's the part that's in contact with the train's wheels. The video clip you just saw is the first segment of today's program featuring the California Zephyr leaving California and traveling east through the Sierra Nevada mountains. That's the section of the Transcontinental Railroad built by Central Pacific Railroad to meet up with the Union Pacific in Promontory, Utah. To learn more about the building of the Transcontinental Railroad, I suggest watching episode 3. There's a lot of history there about the building of America's first transcontinental railroad. The owners of the Central Pacific later built the Southern Pacific, a railroad that dominated California and much of the Southwest and part of the South. Today, the California Zephyr travels this section of the Transcontinental Railroad. Southern Pacific operated the transcontinental route, known as the Overland Route, in cooperation with Union Pacific, making it possible for passengers to reach San Francisco from Chicago on trains called the City of San Francisco and others. However, the world-renowned California Zephyr was not run by either Southern Pacific or Union Pacific. The California Zephyr was operated by 3 railroad companies. From Chicago, it was operated by the Burlington Railroad. From Denver, it was operated by the Rio Grande Railroad. And the final section of the route was operated by Western Pacific. The railroad celebrated on this cup. The operators of the California Zephyr were determined to compete with Southern Pacific with both freight and passenger trains. Western Pacific approached the San Francisco Bay Area on a famous route called the Feather River Canyon. This route today is a passion for rail fans due to its unique and picturesque engineering. The Western Pacific incorporates a feather in its logo to identify with this engineering accomplishment. The Feather River Canyon serves only freight trains today, with the exception of some excursion railroad trips. This shows the Western Pacific pulling the dome cars of the California Zephyr, as it did on the third leg of that trip from Chicago. Here's a close-up of one of those dome cars on the California Zephyr. Some of these cars are still rolling on the rails as private cars pulled behind Amtrak trains. It's a good time now for you to do an informal assessment of how much of this program you understood today. Write down about what percentage of the program you understood in your notebook. An example might be that you understood 80% of what you saw and heard. If you understood more or less in the video clip compared to the rest of the program, write that down as well. Be sure to write down the date and the episode number, which is 16. You can repeat the program. Just go to my website, letscreate.org, and find the episode 16 page. Click the link to see this program again. You'll also see a bonus video of the Coast Starlight Southbound, which includes a visit to California's Elkhorn Slough and scenes of gray whales. Well, that's all for segment 3 of episode 16 of Ramping Up Your English. I want to thank my awesome crew who volunteered their time and talents to make this program possible. I want to thank my announcer, Bob Ayers, and I want to thank you, our viewers. See you next time on RVTV Voices for Ramping Up Your English. I'm John Letz.
You've been watching Ramping Up Your English, a support program for intermediate level English language learners. Learn more. Visit our website at letscreate.org. You can also watch or download today's program at archive.org/details/RogueTV. Join us next time on RVTV Voices for Ramping Up Your English.